Rimuru's Rage by Rimu_Kai 26 Truth. Before the concept of existence was ever conceived, before the birth of time, space, or even the fundamental laws that govern reality, there was only an infinite, endless void. This void was not simply an empty abyss, nor was it a boundless darkness that stretched into eternity. It was something far beyond comprehension, a state of nothingness so absolute that even the concept of nothing had no meaning. There was no up or down, no beginning or end, no existence or non-existence. No time flowed within this void, for time had never been born. There was no space to define distance, no light to cast illumination, and no darkness to shroud anything in mystery. It was a realm that did not even possess silence, for sound itself had yet to be conceptualized. It was the true nullity, a state where even the idea of possibility had yet to manifest. But from this unfathomable nothingness, something impossible occurred, a phenomenon beyond reason, beyond cause and effect. A single, pure, and radiant light was born. This light did not simply exist, it was existence itself, the very first presence in the eternal void, and with it, the first absolute truth came into being. This light was not just an ordinary glow, nor was it a mere spark of energy. It was a divine radiance, a being of incomprehensible supremacy. It was the very first existence in all of reality, an entity that held dominion over all things. This being, the Absolute One, stood above all, embodying the three fundamental principles that define the nature of an absolute God. 1. Absolute eternity. The absolute being was eternal in the truest sense. It had no beginning, for it was born from nothing, and it had no end, for nothing could ever destroy it. Unlike the fleeting, fragile existences that would one day come to be, the absolute being was untouched by decay, unbound by the passage of time, for time itself did not yet exist. It was beyond the concepts of aging, change, or evolution, for it had always been and would always be the same, unchanging, unwavering, infinite. 2. Absolute will. The absolute being's will was the source of all possibility. It was an existence that could impose its desires upon reality without question, for nothing could defy its decree. Its very thoughts became law, its mere intentions shaped the essence of all things. There was no force in existence that could oppose it, for opposition itself did not yet exist. The absolute being was not bound by limitations, nor was it restrained by the consequences of its actions, for whatever it willed was truth, and truth could not be denied. 3. Absolute authority beyond eternity and will. The absolute being held absolute authority over all things, for it alone was the source of reality. There was nothing that could judge it, nothing that could stand equal to it, and nothing that could ever surpass it. All laws, all truths, all principles would come to be only by its decree. Even concepts such as life and death, creation and destruction, order and chaos. None could exist without its command. This authority was not something it had earned, nor was it something that could ever be taken from it. It was simply the fundamental truth of existence. And so, this absolute being, who possessed all three absolutes, stood alone in the void for countless eons. Until, one day, it decided to act. After what could be called 1,000 cycles of an immeasurable eternity, the absolute being, in its supreme wisdom, made a decision. It had existed alone for too long, and though it lacked emotions as mortals would one day understand them, it desired something more. It desired to create. With a mere thought, it reached into the boundless essence of itself and commanded a fragment of its power to take form. From the divine essence of its infinite radiance, a great Holy Spirit of light was forged, an entity of unparalleled purity, embodying the very concept of divine existence. But the absolute being did not stop there. With another decree, it divided this great spirit into 7, shaping them into the first creations, the primordial angels. These 7 beings were divine beyond measure, their very existence radiating the supreme authority of their creator. Each of them bore a name, a title that signified their essence, their purpose, and their power. These 7 stood as the absolute being's subordinates, the first to be granted purpose in the newly forming existence. But creation did not end there. In response to the birth of the primordial angels, the great Holy Spirit of darkness stirred, and from it, counterparts were born. The primordial demons. Unlike their angelic siblings, these beings were not forged from divine radiance but from the boundless abyss, embodying the chaos, destruction, and unrestrained will that existed alongside order. These 7 demons would later be known as the primordial demons of existent. 1. Rouge. the red primordial, the embodiment of supreme power and destruction. 2. Noir, the black primordial, the personification of cunning and absolute loyalty. 3. Blanc, the white primordial, the mistress of death and silent annihilation. 4. Violet, the violet primordial, the incarnation of poison and chaos. 5. John, the yellow primordial, the demon of unrestrained carnage. 6. Blue, the blue primordial, the avatar of sorrow and inevitable suffering. 7. Vert, the green primordial, the bringer of despair and trickery. Each of these demons held immense power, serving as the counterparts to the angels, destined to bring balance to the world that had yet to be fully formed. The Absolute Being, having created these entities, now turned its attention to something far greater, the framework of existence itself. It knew that without time, experiences would be meaningless, and without space, no entity could truly exist. Thus, it willed time into being. Time was not merely the measure of moments. It was the essence of experience, allowing all things to change, to grow, to decay. It brought the concepts of past, present, and future into reality, giving meaning to existence. Time ensured that memories could be formed, that the weight of the past could shape the future. Then, it willed space into being. Space was not merely emptiness, it was the foundation upon which all things would reside. It gave form to reality, creating the very fabric that would allow all wills to exist independently, separate yet connected. Space allowed for dimensions to unfold, for realms to be crafted, for the universe to take shape. And with this, the Absolute Being's greatest act was complete. The foundation of all existence had been set. The primordial forces of light and darkness, the first beings, and the framework of time and space. Now, true creation could begin. The Absolute Being had forged the foundation of existence, time, the river of experience, space, the vessel of reality, and the first entities, the primordial angels and demons, destined to weave the balance between order and chaos. But creation did not stop there. Having brought forth the basic structure of the cosmos, the Absolute Beings will surge forth once more, and in an instant, an infinite number of realms came into existence. Countless worlds, universes, multiverses, and alternate realities unfolded in every direction, each unique, yet all bound by the grand framework of existence. Some were vast beyond comprehension, housing celestial wonders and unimaginable civilizations, while others were mere fragments of reality, ephemeral and fleeting, destined to be born and erased within moments. Within these boundless realms, laws of existence varied. Some were governed by logic and order, while others thrived in chaos, where the impossible became reality with a mere thought. Among these realms, 3 distinct spiritual dominions emerged, each catering to a different kind of existence. Heaven, the realm of divine radiance, was a sanctuary of celestial order, where the primordial angels resided in eternal harmony, their purpose defined by the will of the Absolute. It was a realm of infinite light, where purity and justice flourished, untouched by corruption. Hell, a chaotic inferno forged from the Absolute Being's understanding of balance, served as the dwelling of the primordial demons. Unlike mortal perceptions of damnation, this realm was not a prison of torment but a domain where strength dictated survival. It was a world of unyielding will, where only those who could endure its chaotic storms thrived. The spirit realm, a plane of shifting energies, was crafted for ethereal beings, spirits of varying attributes, neither wholly good nor evil, existing in a constant flow between creation and destruction. This world served as the birthplace of elemental spirits, beings that would later shape the natural forces of countless realities. The Absolute Being, satisfied with these great domains, turned its attention to the realms of the living. It wished to craft a world where spiritual and material beings could intertwine, evolve, and define their own destinies. Thus, within the multiverse, the cardinal world was born. A realm where spiritual beings could manifest in tangible forms, and where the seeds of mortal life would soon be planted. But the Absolute Being did not wish to create this world alone. It sought an individual who would shape the foundations of living races, ensuring that existence would never stagnate. And so, it willed into being the first individual existence, separate yet derived from itself. From the Absolute Being's divine essence, a radiant form took shape, a being neither angel nor demon, neither spirit nor dragon, but something beyond all that had come before. This entity, blessed with boundless creative power, was given a name, Twilight Valentine. Twilight's purpose was clear: to bring diversity into existence, to create the mortals who would fill the cardinal world. With the will of a god yet the imagination of an artist, Twilight shaped the first mortal races, each unique in strength, wisdom, and potential. High humans, the pinnacle of mortal existence, imbued with superior intellect and lifespans that stretched across centuries. Humans, more fragile yet limitless in adaptability, their short lives driving them to evolve, innovate, and seek meaning in fleeting moments. Dwarves, masters of craftsmanship, their sturdy forms reflecting their unbreakable resolve. Elves, ethereal beings attuned to magic, their beauty and grace unmatched among mortals. High elves, the closest to spirits, their power over nature surpassing all others. Monsters, beings of raw, primal instinct, their existence shaping the balance of predator and prey. Vampires, immortal beings cursed with an insatiable thirst, their strength fueled by the life essence of others. Giants, colossal beings of near divine might, walking titans who could reshape landscapes with a single step. These races were scattered across the cardinal world, each given the chance to thrive, to evolve, to carve their own histories. But despite creating such vast diversity, despite achieving what no other existence could, the absolute being felt something off. For all its omniscience, all its power, it lacked one thing: the ability to experience life as the mortals did. It knew the past, present, and future, understood every thought and feeling that could ever exist, but it had never truly felt those emotions itself. It had never known uncertainty, struggle, or desire in the way that mortals did. It was the sole being untouched by its own creation. For the first time since its existence began, the absolute being made a decision not as an omnipotent god, but as an individual who longed for something beyond knowledge. It desired to experience. Thus, it willed into existence a perfect vessel, an avatar unlike any other, a being that would serve as its link to the mortal world. This vessel was not merely a fragment of itself but a true incarnation, one that could walk among the mortals, feel their joys and sorrows, understand their desires and struggles. This being was named Velda Nava, the will of the god. Velda Nava was crafted as the first turned dragon, a divine existence that embodied the concept of creation itself. He was unlike any being before him, possessing the wisdom of the absolute yet the freedom of an individual. His essence burned with celestial radiance, a being whose mere presence reshaped reality. However, the absolute being knew that simply existing as Velda Nava would not be enough. To truly experience mortality, he needed to relinquish a part of his divine authority. Thus, he fragmented his infinite power into 14 ultimate skills, each carrying a portion of his true essence. These skills were not meant for him to wield. Instead, they were released into the cycle of reincarnation, destined to find their way into the hands of worthy individuals throughout eternity. Each skill contained the potential to wield a mere fraction of his limitless might, and those who obtained all 14 would come closest to reaching his true nature. Yet, he kept one for himself: the ultimate skill. Michael. It would serve as his anchor, ensuring that, no matter what path he walked as Velda Nava, he would never forget his origin. And so, with his power dispersed and his new form complete, Velda Nava descended into the cardinal world. As Velda Nava emerged into existence, his divine presence coalesced into the form of a turned dragon, a celestial entity unlike any that had come before. His essence radiated like the stars, his body a magnificent construct of pure, untamed divinity. He was the stellar dragon, the first and greatest among all being, a being whose existence signified the merging of absolute divinity and mortal experience. With this form, Velda Nava stepped into the vastness of the world he had created, not as an untouchable god, but as a being seeking to understand. He gazed upon the lands where Twilight Valentine's mortal races thrived, watched as angels and demons waged their eternal battle, observed spirits weaving the threads of nature's balance. For the first time, he did not simply know existence. He was a part of it. And thus, the absolute being's greatest experiment began: the journey of a god who wished to walk among his creation, to understand the fleeting beauty of mortality, and to experience life not as the ruler of all, but as one among many. This was the first step toward a fate that would shape the very foundation of the world, toward a destiny intertwined with creation itself. Countless years passed. The cardinal world flourished. Nations and kingdoms rose and fell like waves against the eternal shore. Mortals advanced, discovering magic and civilizations that rivaled even the great celestial domains. They built empires, waged wars, and sought peace, all while their spirits burned with the unquenchable desire to shape their own destinies. Velda Nava watched it all unfold. He had once been the supreme existence, a being of unfathomable might who crafted the very foundation of reality. Yet, as time moved forward, he felt something foreign creeping into his heart, a feeling he never once considered in his omniscience. Loneliness. He had seen life in every form, created infinite wonders, and given birth to the concept of free will. But he was alone, not as an observer of reality, but as a living being who had stepped into the world he had forged. His existence was solitary, unshared. And so, from his infinite will, he created three beings, not as servants or subjects, but as siblings. They were not bound by blood, nor by duty, but by something greater, a bond of family. Velzard, the Ice Empress, the elder sister. The firstborn was Velzard, a being of supreme serenity and absolute cold. Her very presence could freeze the flow of time, and her breath could crystallize space itself. She embodied stillness, calculation, and the quiet grace of winter. Unlike her creator, Velzard was not one to seek experience, she found comfort in the unchanging nature of eternity. Despite this, she held an unshakable love for her younger siblings, often acting as the voice of reason among them. Velgrind, the Flame Sovereign, the middle sister. Next came Velgrind, a blazing force of passion and destruction. Unlike Velzard's calm demeanor, Velgrind was fierce, independent, and driven. She embodied the fire of ambition, never content with stagnation. She believed in constant evolution, in pushing forward, no matter the obstacles. Though she often clashed with Velzard due to their differing natures, her love for her family was undeniable. Veldora, the Storm Dragon, the youngest sibling. The last was Veldora, the embodiment of boundless freedom. He was untamed, chaotic, and endlessly curious. Unlike his sisters, he had no interest in order or control. Instead, he sought adventure, mischief, and excitement. His storms raged across the world not out of malice, but out of pure, untamed joy. Though reckless, Veldora held a deep respect for Veldanava, admiring him not as a god, but as an elder brother. Together, the four true dragons shaped history. Though they were not bound by blood, they called each other family, and that bond would remain eternal. Time passed, and soon, Veldanava encountered a being unlike any other. A primordial demon, cloaked in an aura of endless crimson. A being who had no master, no kingdom, and no cause. He was a rogue, without loyalty to angels or demons, existing purely for his own desires. He introduced himself as Rouge. And he challenged Veldanava to battle. The fight lasted but an instant. Rouge had power beyond mortal comprehension, but against the stellar dragon, he was as insignificant as a flickering flame before an endless sun. Yet, rather than taking Rouge as a servant, Veldanava offered him something else, friendship. For the first time, Rouge found something worth following. And so, Veldanava entrusted him with a role, the mediator of the cardinal world. Rouge would serve as the enemy of all, the villain whom the world would unite against. By giving the people a common foe, Veldanava ensured that mortal conflicts would never escalate beyond control. And so, Rouge became the first demon lord, Guy Crimson, the orchestrator of balance, the eternal villain. However, balance would not last forever. From the depths of the unknown, something unnatural entered the cardinal world. A dragon, blacker than the void, its presence swallowing all light. It was not a true dragon, yet its power rivaled that of Veldanava himself. Weaker version of Veldanava, but there was something wrong. It had no mind, no will, no identity. Its soul was shattered, incomplete. It was a being of pure destruction, a force that did not belong. Upon its arrival, entire worlds crumbled into oblivion, unable to withstand its presence. Guy Crimson, alongside the first primordial angel, Feldway, confronted the monster. Their battle lasted 3 months, a war of titanic proportions that reshaped reality itself. But even at their limits, they could not defeat it. Then Veldanava stepped in. The battle between the stellar dragon and the incomplete dragon shook existence to its core. It raged for 30 years, a ceaseless clash of divine forces. Though Veldanava was weaker than in his prime, having given away much of his power, he remained the strongest. In the end, he did not destroy the black dragon, instead, he sealed it away. For the first time in his existence, Velda Nava felt curiosity. He believed that, one day, this mindless entity would develop an ego, a will, and perhaps, even a soul. He gave the dragon a name, Ivaraj, the world destroyer. And thus, the cardinal world was saved. More countless years passed. Velda Nava took a student, Rudra, a mortal with unparalleled talent. He trained Rudra to become the first hero, a force capable of standing equal to even Guy Crimson. However, Velda Nava did something unexpected. He exchanged his ultimate skill, Michael, with Rudra's ultimate skill, Uriel. And in doing so, he took his first step toward mortality. But then, Velda Nava fell in love. Lucia, Rudra's younger sister, captured his heart. In time, they bore a child, Milam Nava. With her birth, Velda Nava grew weaker. His love for his family defied the very rules he had established. He could no longer be a god, for a god must love all equally. Yet he now loved his wife and daughter above all else. His power faded, his divinity withered. In the end, he gave the last remnants of his strength to his daughter, Milam Nava, ensuring she would inherit his legacy. And so, Velda Nava, the once omnipotent god, became a mere mortal. A man who had once been the foundation of all existence, now nothing more than a human. A being who had once been untouchable, now bound by the same fragility as those he once watched from the heavens. This was not a fall from grace, this was a choice. The choice to live. And so, the legend of Velda Nava, the stellar dragon, faded into history. But his legacy would shape the world forever. But this is not a story about the creation of the world, nor is it about Velda Nava, the so-called supreme god who shaped existence in his own image. No, this is a story about another being. A being whose existence was fated to be forgotten, whose presence was erased from history. Ivaraj. Many knew of her as a mindless, raging beast. A creature of destruction that devoured all in its path, an empty husk of what should have been. But this was not the truth. The truth was that she had once been complete. She had once possessed an ego, a soul, and an intellect that rivaled Velda Nava himself. To understand why she was reduced to a mere beast, one must go back, to the beginning, to the time when Velda Nava created the cardinal world. Beyond the newly born reality, deeper than the void where Velda Nava first emerged, something else took form. Another entity. A being that should not have existed yet did, a force that was meant to be one with the supreme god. A black dragon. She was Ivaraj, and she was not like the version the world would later come to fear. No, this Ivaraj was whole. She was not some mindless beast, but an entity equal to Velda Nava, his counterpart. A fragment of the absolute being, torn away and cast aside. Her goal was simple: to reunite with her true self, to become whole again, and for that, she needed to consume Velda Nava. She was the part of him that had been forsaken, the embodiment of destruction itself. Yet, fate had other plans. For eons, Ivaraj searched for Velda Nava, seeking to reclaim what was rightfully hers. But before she could reach him, something unexpected happened. A disturbance. Reality itself was rewritten. Not once, not twice, but 4 times. This was not the work of Velda Nava. No, she knew his power well, and this was something else. Someone else. Another force, equal to Velda Nava, had altered the very fabric of existence. Ivaraj was intrigued. She searched, desperate to find the source of this anomaly. Yet, no matter where she looked, there was nothing. No trace, no clue, only the lingering sensation that something, or someone, had changed the course of fate itself. Then, at last, she saw him. A being moving through the void, stepping between timelines as if they were nothing more than doors. To reach him, Ivaraj made a choice. She separated her consciousness, casting her spiritual form into the vast unknown. Her physical body, her mighty draconic form, was left behind, an empty husk with no mind, no will. That shell, abandoned and without purpose, would later become the beast feared across the cardinal world. The creature that fought Guy Crimson and Feldway, a dragon without thought or reason. But that was not her. Her true self had a different purpose. Drifting through the currents of existence, Ivaraj followed the one who had rewritten reality. She walked through shattered timelines, through broken worlds where destinies were twisted and reforged. And in every timeline, she found the same result. Rimuru Tempest. No matter the path, no matter the history, it always led to him. She watched as he slaughtered countless versions of herself. Again, and again, and again. She saw herself rise as a god, only to be struck down. She saw herself become a ruler, a force of destruction, only to fall at his hands. Even when she saw a male version of herself, one who had succeeded in becoming whole, even he was not spared. That version of Ivaraj had been trapped, sealed within the void until existence itself came to an end. And Rimuru. There was one timeline, one twisted, cursed timeline, where Rimuru Tempest had been left behind, where he had become something else. A version of Rimuru who had fallen into the abyss, consumed by the void itself. A Rimuru who had been killed, not by Veldanava, not by some grand cosmic force, but by Feldway, the primordial anger. That Rimuru was different, darker, more dangerous. And for the first time in her existence, Ivaraj hesitated. This was no ordinary opponent. This was no mere plaything to manipulate. This Rimuru, he was like her. A fragment cast aside. A being who should not exist, yet did. Ivaraj did not speak to him. Not yet. She did not approach. She did not make her presence known. Instead, she waited. She observed. She learned. Rimuru stood alone in the void, his power distorting reality itself. His presence was wrong, as if he should not be there, and yet, he remained. The world had abandoned him, and yet he refused to disappear. She watched him in silence, waiting for the right moment. She was patient. And in the depths of her mind, she was amused. Because unlike her other selves, the countless Ivarajas who had fallen before him, she had no intention of fighting him. No, she had something far greater in mind. She would make him hers. Not as an ally. Not as a partner. As a vessel. This Rimuru was perfect. A broken soul, lost in the void. A being cast aside by fate itself. All he needed was a push. A voice whispering in the darkness. A guiding hand to lead him toward the path he was always meant to take. And when the time came, when he was at his weakest, she would consume him. She would take over his mind, his power, his very being. And at last, she would become whole. To be continued,